Hey folks, tonight we're diving into the ruthless world of the samurai, the warriors who carved their lives from honor, discipline, and a whole lot of pain. These guys didn't just swing swords, they lived by a code that demanded perfection, loyalty, and a willingness to stare death in the face every single day. Before you get cozy, do me a solid hit that like button and subscribe, but only if you're actually here for this kind of brutal, no, fluff history. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is. It's always wild to see how far this story travels. Now, dim the lights, maybe fire up a fan for that soft white noise, and let's step into the armor of a samurai. Think you'd survive the life. Cute, like a cat trying to do calculus. Alright, let's get into it. Before you even touched a katana or dreamed of wielding it with honor, you had to survive the initiation. The samurai recruitment wasn't a talent show. It was a relentless trial by tradition, expectation, and 1,000 years of blood-soaked rules. Your name didn't matter. Your dreams didn't matter. What mattered was your bloodline, your discipline, and your willingness to be consumed by a life far harsher than any peasant's. Step 1: be born into a warrior family. No, seriously. If your ancestors hadn't been sword-bearing warriors serving a daimyo, a powerful lord, for generations, don't bother applying. Adoption was a possibility, but more often a death sentence masked as opportunity. The samurai class was as much about pedigree as it was about skill. Your childhood was not your own. Forget toys and laughter. You learned from the moment you could walk that the way of the sword was a cold, unyielding path. At dawn, your day began with hours of meditation, not the peaceful kind you might imagine, but a brutal mental forging, training you to suppress fear, doubt, and pain. Your body was a tool, not a temple. Your diet, strict, no excess. Rice, miso soup, a bit of fish, all measured to keep you lean but strong. No indulgence, no sweets. Sake was reserved for ceremonies, not comfort. You weren't a feudal lord, you were a blade forged for service. Your teacher was harsh. Sensei's eyes were as sharp as his blade, missing no weakness, no hesitation. One slip, one twitch of fear, and you would be scolded, shoved, or worse, punished physically, all in the name of molding you into a perfect soldier. And then came the first lesson in humility: the bow. Not the flashy katana yet. No, you learned that before you could strike, you must first master patience. The yumi, tall, unwieldy, and demanding, forced you to hold your breath, steady your shaking hands, and focus your scattered mind. Fail, and your pride would be the only thing pierced. Your clothing was restrictive, multiple layers of silk and cotton armor padding beneath your lacquered plates. Each piece painstakingly crafted to protect you, but weighing you down like the crushing weight of expectation. You had to move with grace, but feel like a moving fortress. The moment you first held a katana was overwhelming. The sword was not just metal, it was your soul's extension, your family's honor, and your death sentence, all wrapped in a razor edge. It wasn't a toy or a weapon for show, it was a lifelong companion that demanded respect, attention, and a willingness to die by its side. Your haircut, the chomage, wasn't about style, it was a statement. The shaved pate and the small top knot weren't trendy. They marked you as a samurai, a man bound by strict codes and rituals. Let it grow wrong, or keep the wrong style, and you invited shame and mockery. Discipline was everything. You woke before dawn, bowed to your ancestors and your daimyo, and began the unending drills. Strike practice, horse riding, strategy lessons, calligraphy, poetry. Yes, poetry. Because a true samurai was not just a fighter, but a cultured warrior poet. Failed to write a perfect haiku, and your honor was questioned. Your social status was enviable and dangerous. You had privileges, no taxes, land rights, the respect of commoners. But with it came enemies, rival samurai who would not hesitate to kill you for a slight, a perceived insult, or political advantage. And if your lord decided you were a threat or a failure, the honor of seppuku awaited. Ritual suicide to restore your name and dignity. No second chances, no mercy. The blade you respected would be the one ending your life. The code bushidō was brutal. Loyalty, honor, courage, respect. Words heavier than the iron on your armor. One misstep, one loss of face, and your entire existence could unravel. This was your world. A life where survival was measured not just by living, but by dying right. You wake before the sun. Not because you're eager, but because you're expected to. If the rooster crows before you've tied your hakama, that's already a strike against your honor. This isn't a gentle stretch and yawn kind of morning. It's more, get up before your ancestors are ashamed of your laziness. Your futon feels like it was stuffed with gravel. The tatami mat underneath creaks as you rise. Quietly, always quietly. Your fellow trainees are already awake, kneeling in perfect silence, facing the shrine. It's not prayer. It's accountability. You bow, not to ask for blessings, but to acknowledge how close you are to failure. Next, water, cold. Poured directly over your head. No steam, no comfort. This isn't some peaceful Zen retreat. This is to remind you that you're alive and softness is unacceptable. The chill doesn't just shock your skin, it bruises your ego. The only towel you get is a rag that smells faintly of mildew and old bamboo. Wipe faster. You're late. Dressed in your plain training gi and stiff hakama, you shuffle outside to the dojo courtyard. The dirt is cold, the stone is colder. Your sensei stands like a statue, arms folded, eyes closed. Don't be fooled. He knows who's dragging their feet and who's trying to breathe through their mouth like a weakling. You bow again, lower this time. If your back isn't flat and respectful enough, expect a swift correction with the wooden sword. Today's first task, stillness. You kneel in Caesar, back straight, hands folded. Try holding this pose for 30 minutes. At first, it's fine. After 5, your toes go numb. 10 minutes in, your knees scream. By 20, your entire lower body feels like it belongs to someone you hate, and you're not even allowed to fidget. If a single muscle twitches out of frustration, you get to start over. Or worse, you get assigned to rice, pounding duty while your peers continue training. Nothing says shame like swinging a wooden mallet at wet grain while others practice sword forms. Then comes the warm-up, but calling it a warm-up is like calling seppuku a minor inconvenience. You run laps around the compound, barefoot, dodging stones that seem specifically designed to cripple your willpower. You climb ropes, swing weighted poles, and hold horse stance until your thighs feel like they're plotting against you. Sensei yells, lower, you obey. Then, still, you stop wobbling. Then he shouts, faster! And suddenly you're sprinting again, dragging a wooden sled full of heavy rocks like an angry mule chasing a promotion. All this and you still haven't touched a sword. That comes after drills. You line up in rows, every student standing exactly 1 arm's length apart. If you're not symmetrical, sensei knows. If your stance is off, sensei knows. If your spirit is lacking, everyone knows. And then the bokken comes out. A wooden practice sword that looks harmless until it kisses your ribs at full speed. You're taught the basic strikesy downward cut, diagonal cut, horizontal cut, over and over, again and again, until your hands blister and your shoulders threaten a revolt. But you don't stop, because fatigue is weakness and weakness is shame, and shame might as well be death. Then comes kiai, the shout. Not the cute kind from anime. This is primal violent. It's meant to break your opponent's will, and also to convince yourself that you're not terrified. You scream until your throat hurts, and if your kiai isn't terrifying enough, sensei glares like he's considering adopting a new student to replace you. Lunch arrives like a brief ceasefire. A bowl of rice, maybe some pickled vegetables if the gods are merciful. No seconds, no snacks. You sit in a row with the others, eating silently. Slurping too loudly is disrespectful. Eating too slowly is lazy laughing. Suicidal, no one laughs here. You bow before eating, you bow after eating. You bow when you put your chopsticks down. Every movement is deliberate, every breath controlled. You're not just learning how to fight, you're learning how to disappear inside tradition. Afternoon training begins with paired combat drills. You face off against a partner who's either twice your size or half your mercy. There are no even matches. There's only pain management. The goal is to build muscle memory, not win. Though if you do land a lucky strike, don't smile. That's arrogance, and arrogance earns punishment. Your partner hits you in the shoulder. You grunt, absorb it, you counter, he parries, you reset, again, and again, until the world becomes a blur of wood, sweat, and groaning joints. Your forearms swell like bamboo, your knuckles split. Sensei walks by and mutters, "You're late in the hips." You're not sure what that means, but it makes you feel like a failure anyway. Sparring ends with meditation. Again, Caesar. More stillness, more numbness. It's supposed to clear your mind, but all you can think about is how you no longer remember what standing up feels like. One student collapses mid-kneel. No one moves to help. He's expected to crawl back up on his own. Dinner is identical to lunch, only darker. You bow, you eat, you clean your dishes yourself with cold water and a frayed cloth that's seen too many noodles. Then you sit for calligraphy. Why? Because a samurai isn't just a killer. He's a man of letters. You dip the brush, try to write a perfect kanji, and smear ink across the paper like a toddler with anger issues. Sensei sighs audibly. Finally, you're allowed to sleep. But it's not sleep. It's strategic unconsciousness. You lie on your futon, every muscle tight, knowing that tomorrow is more of the same, and probably worse. The room smells of sweat and damp armor. You dream of your old life, the soft pillow, the warm bath, the laughter. But you're not that person anymore. You're a blade in training, and you're failing beautifully. You finally earn the right to hold a real katana. Not your own, of course. You're still years away from that level of trust. This one's a dull practice blade, wrapped in years of oil, rust, and the sweat of those who failed before you. But to you, it might as well be Excalibur. You grip it with trembling hands, bowing so deeply it feels like you're apologizing to the ancestors for even daring to touch it. Sensei watches. Not like a coach. Like a hawk sizing up a wounded rabbit. He says nothing. Just waits. You step forward, raise the blade overhead, and execute your first cut. Wrong. He doesn't say it. You feel it. Everyone does. The dojo falls silent, save for the chirp of a cricket, who clearly doesn't understand the gravity of your embarrassment. Then Sensei finally speaks, and his voice is like dry leaves scraping across a gravestone. Again. So you do it again. You raise the blade. Cut. Wrong again. Not strong enough. Not smooth enough. Not aligned with your center. Your spirit isn't in it. Or maybe it is, and that's the problem. Either way, it ends the same, with more shouting and a deep, yawning sense that maybe you're not meant for this life after all. By now, the sword isn't just heavy in your hands. It's heavy in your heart. It's a reminder that your path is paved with failure, and every misstep is written in invisible ink across your future headstone. But you swing anyway, because giving up isn't allowed. There's no "I'm tired" in bushidō. There's only do better or die worse. Then there's the kata, the choreographed dances of death. Sequences of strikes, footwork, and breath, performed not for applause but for perfection. You do them over and over alone, with a partner, in rows, on dirt, on wooden floors, in the rain, in silence. The steps are simple. The execution? Impossible. 1 foot forward. Blade to the sky. Strike. Shift. Parry. Lunge. Cut. Breathe in. Breathe out. You're not just performing. You're proving that you are not weak, that you are not soft, that you are worthy. But your thighs shake. Your elbows betray you. Your wrist flinches. And Sensei is always watching, even when he isn't. And then mid-swing your hand slips just a little, but enough you drop the blade. Time stops. The dojo goes silent. You've done the unthinkable. The katana is sacred. It's your soul. It's the honor of your family, the pride of your lord, the legacy of your ancestors. And you let it fall. Even if it's a practice blade, even if the floor cushioned the drop, the offense is the same. Sensei doesn't yell. That would be merciful. Instead, he walks over. Slow. Deliberate. Each step a reminder that you've failed at being the one thing you're here to become. He picks up the blade and hands it back to you with 2 fingers, as if your shame is contagious. 50 cuts, he says. You nod. You don't argue. You perform them. Each strike full of shame and effort, one after another, until your shoulders seize and your arms burn and your hands begin to blister. Again and again. When you're done, you bow so low you can taste the dirt on the floor. It doesn't taste like forgiveness. Later, the older students teach you to polish the real blades. You kneel on the floor with a cloth, a stone, and an unreasonable amount of reverence. The katana is not sharpened like a kitchen knife, it is honed. Gently, lovingly, as if it were a sleeping god. You're told to whisper while you polish. Some students chant. You don't know why. Maybe it's tradition. Maybe it's to calm the sword. Or maybe it's just to stop your hands from shaking. You don't just learn the edge, you learn the parts. The tsuba, the guard. The tsuka, the hilt. The heiman, the temper line. Every piece has a purpose. Every curve has a story. The sword isn't just a tool. It's a legacy. It's seen more blood than you've seen daylight. You dare not look at it too long, in case it looks back. Evenings are spent writing about the sword. Not just how to use it, but how to be it. Your ink brush glides over parchment as you copy down quotes from long, dead masters. The way of the warrior is resolute acceptance of death. You underline that one. Even though you don't fully understand it yet, then you practice cutting with the real thing. Finally, tatami mats soaked in water are rolled up and stood upright, ready for your blade. You bow, you raise the sword, and this time it lands true. You feel a flicker of pride. Then sensei reminds you, one cut doesn't make you a samurai, but it does make you a target for everyone else. Now the pressure's worse. Your peers stare harder. They want to see you fail again, to remind themselves that you're not ahead, just lucky. At night, your hands ache too much to eat with chopsticks. You soak them in hot water, while watching others practice under torchlight. You could join them, but if your grip slips again, you'll only bring shame twice in one day. So you rest, but you don't sleep, because the sword is in your dreams now, cutting, slicing, waiting. And it always looks sharpest just before it turns on you. The first time they hand you your armor, you think it's ceremonial. It's far too intricate to be practical. 1,000 tiny plates tied together with cords. What is this, battle gear or a decorative curtain? But no, this is the real thing. Teak Yoroi, the great armor of the samurai. It's here to protect you, yes, but mostly, it's here to remind you that your body is not yours anymore. It takes nearly half an hour to put it all on. Longer if you're fumbling, which of course, you are. The older trainees help you, but they do it with the kind of cheerful mockery usually reserved for someone about to walk into a duel with the blade pointed at himself. Lice it tighter, one of them says, pulling the sword. The massive shoulder guards, so tightly your circulation files a complaint. Don't forget the high date. Another one mutters, slapping your thigh guards into place. You'll want those when you're kneeling in gravel for 6 hours. By the time they're done, you look like an armored turtle. The kabuto, the helmet, goes on last. It's beautifully terrifying. A curved metal faceplate stares back at you from the polished lacquer, and for a second, you wonder if this is who you've become, a man hidden behind a mask, built for war, but trained to smile through pain. You try walking. You sound like a shrine full of wind chimes. Every step clinks, every shift squeaks. The weight is unbearable. It's like carrying a small child on your back while wrapped in a portable iron cage. And yet you're expected to fight in this. Not just fight, run, dodge, roll, survive. You begin training in formation, lined up shoulder to shoulder with other trainees, each of you dressed like a mobile fortress. From a distance, you look fearsome. Up close, it's a hot, itchy nightmare of tangled cords and constricted joints. You can't scratch your back, you can barely lift your arms. And forget going to the toilet. That's a 20-minute operation, and if you're not fast, you're doing push-ups in full armor until your knees beg for mercy. Sensei blows a whistle, not because it's efficient, because he enjoys the sound of panic. Charge, he bellows, and you charge. Kind of. You shuffle aggressively in a forward motion, while trying not to trip over your suniate, the shin guards that seem specifically designed to ruin your stride. You swing your sword, but the shoulder plates slam into your helmet. You turn your head, but the neck guard blocks your view. Welcome to samurai combat, where you're a blind, clanking payata hoping your opponent is even more confused than you are. Still, you persist, because you must. The drills continue for hours. March forward. Stop. Turn. Draw your blade. Bow. Sheath it. Repeat. Do it again. Do it faster. If you're not coordinated, sensei will let you know, not with words, but by striking your back with a bamboo stick. Correction through pain. Then comes the real test, mounted training. You've never ridden a horse in your life, but samurai were expected to fight from horseback, so now you must learn. Your horse, if it can be called that, looks offended that someone like you would even dare approach. It's old, ornery, and probably more experienced than the entire dojo combined. You try to mount, you fail. Twice. On the third attempt, you scramble up like a sack of rice tied to a ladder. You sit crooked. Your armor digs into your ribs, your sword hilt jabs your armpit, and then the horse starts moving, and suddenly you understand why samurai practice dying as much as they practiced living. You bounce at every step. Your thighs burn, your back screams, but you can't show weakness. So you pretend this is fine. You pretend this is glorious. You are not fooling anyone. Next comes the archery test, on horseback. Yabasame, Sensei announces, gesturing toward a long wooden track lined with targets. You are to ride, draw your bow, and shoot while galloping at full speed. You raise your hand to ask if maybe starting on foot would be better. Mistake. Questions are weakness. Now you're first. You grip the bow, taller than you, shaped asymmetrically to allow for shooting from a horse. You notch an arrow, whisper a desperate prayer to a god you stopped believing in when your rice ration got cut last week, and kick the horse forward. It bolts. You are not ready. The bow wobbles in your grip. You rise to shoot. Your helmet shifts over your eyes. You fire. The arrow flies sideways into a bush. You almost follow it. The dojo laughs. Sensei doesn't, which is somehow worse. You dismount with the grace of a sack of beans being dropped off a cart. You bow. You apologize. He says nothing. Later, during armor cleaning, the older students tell stories of real battles, of men who wore that same helmet into war, of limbs lost, of entire units crushed by Mongol arrows or rival clans. They speak of it like a ghost story, but the kind where the ghost is you, 10 years from now, wondering how you ever thought this was a noble career path. You polish the plates until you see your face again. Tired, pale, thinner. A face that doesn't look quite like yours anymore. A face that belongs to the armor now. You sleep in it tonight, as ordered, to get used to the weight. You don't sleep, because it doesn't feel like you're wearing armor. It feels like you're being buried alive in it. You thought the sword was going to be the hardest part, or maybe the armor, or the horse. But no, turns out the most dangerous weapon in the samurai world is etiquette. And you are constantly stabbing yourself with it. The day starts with a tea ceremony. Sounds peaceful, right? Like a moment of calm in this storm of violence. Wrong. This is the ceremony, capital C, a performance of grace and precision so detailed it makes your sword kata feel like flailing. You enter the tea room, quietly. No stomping, no heavy sighs. Left foot first. Bow at exactly the right depth, not too low. You're not a farmer, not too high, you're not a lord. Walk along the edge of the mat, never across. Sit in Caesar, which at this point feels like sitting on a pile of nails. Your host prepares the tea with slow, deliberate movements. You must watch with reverence, as if you're witnessing a divine act. You are not allowed to scratch your nose. You are not allowed to check the time, especially since time here doesn't seem to exist. You are not allowed to gulp your tea like it's your first sip after battle. You must rotate the cup twice, admire it, sip, wipe the rim, rotate it back, bow, then pretend like you loved it, even if it tastes like moss filtered through discipline. You exit the ceremony exhausted, legs numb, bladder full, soul confused. You are told you did adequately, which in samurai terms is a rousing ovation. Then, back to etiquette drills. Because bowing isn't just respect, it's survival. Bow too casually to a superior, and you're insulting their honor. Bow too deeply to a subordinate, and you're dishonoring yourself. Bow at the wrong time, social seppuku. You practice bowing with the others in a mirrored hall, each of you hunched over like synchronized regret. Your angle must be precise. 15 degrees for casual, 30 degrees for formal, 45 degrees for the emperor, and 90 degrees if you've just ruined your family name and need forgiveness before someone draws a sword. And speaking of names, forget your own. You now refer to everyone by titles. Sama for lords, sensei for instructors, dono for respected elders. Use the wrong suffix, and you might as well offer your neck as an apology. During meals, you speak only when spoken to. You don't slurp until the eldest slurps first. You don't start eating until the host picks up his chopsticks. You don't point, chew loudly, or, heaven forbid, stab your rice bowl with your chopsticks like some kind of uncultured war criminal. That's not just rude, that's spiritual offense. You'd be better off committing arson. But the etiquette doesn't end with food or bows. It follows you like a shadow. There's a right way to open a door. Slide, don't swing. There's a right way to sit. Knees together, back straight, hands in your lap like they're attending a funeral. Even walking has rules. You walk slightly behind your superior. You walk quietly, softly. No swagger. Swagger is for ronin, or drunk poets. The worst moment comes during a formal meeting with a visiting lord. You are told to kneel, bow, and remain still while the senior samurai speak. Easy, you think, until your foot falls asleep. Then your knee locks. Then your entire leg decides to abandon your body like a disgraced retainer. You shift slightly, just slightly. The floorboard creaks. Everyone hears it, the lord's eyebrow twitches, just barely. But in this room, a twitch is a scream. You are dismissed. Not with words, just a glance. A leave before I regret sparing your peasant soul glance. Later, you're told that your inability to remain still during a 2-hour silence has embarrassed the dojo. You are given bathroom cleaning duty. With a toothbrush. Your toothbrush. At night, you collapse onto your futon, body aching from the physical and psychological acrobatics of the day. And yet, the other students seem fine. Some even seem to like it. They bow smoothly, eat perfectly. Their handwriting is balanced. Their armor is polished. Their speech is so polite it could be used to lull infants to sleep. You begin to suspect they were born into this. You, however, were not. You came into the samurai world expecting duels and glory. But here you are, paralyzed by which angle to hold your rice bowl. The worst part, there's no room for individuality. You can't bow your way. You can't sip your way. You must erase yourself to fit in. The code is law, and the law does not care how unique or interesting you are. So you practice. You practice bowing. You practice sitting. You practice silence. You rehearse apologies for mistakes you haven't made yet. You rehearse facial expressions. A smile that shows gratitude, not arrogance. A nod that implies agreement, not boredom. You learn how to laugh softly, cry silently, and exist politely. And just when you think you're getting the hang of it, someone reminds you. You held your chopsticks too close to the middle. Again. Shame, once more. You consider briefly, if dishonor is such a terrible thing, maybe being a merchant wouldn't be so bad. You could sell kimonos, or soba noodles, or decorative fans with no instructions on how to bow in front of them. But then you remember the oath, the promise to serve with loyalty, discipline, and grace. And you realize you didn't just commit to war. You committed to disappearing, because that's what it takes to survive as a samurai. You must bow so often you forget how to stand on your own. The day finally comes when you are summoned by the daimyo, your lord. Not casually. Not, hey, drop by when you're free. No, you are summoned, which is code for, if you're not already bowing by the time you arrive, you're bowing to your own funeral. This is the man you've trained your entire life to serve. The man whose honor is more important than your pulse. You've never met him until now. But today, you will swear yourself to him. You wear your finest robes. You don't choose them. Someone else does. You don't dress yourself. Someone else does that too. Your job is to not ruin everything by being too sweaty or breathing too loud. Which is harder than it sounds, because this is the most important 5 minutes of your entire life. You are marched into the hall like a lamb dressed for sacrifice. Tatami mats underfoot, incense in the air, a row of solemn retainers lining the room like judgmental statues. At the far end him, your daimyo, seated higher than everyone else, calm, immovable, like a mountain that decides your fate. You bow so low your forehead taps the floor. You stay there until your neck begins to question your life choices. Then the oath. You recite it from memory. Not because it's beautiful, though it is, but because forgetting a single word is like tripping over your own name. You pledge your life, your sword, your soul. You promise to live for him, die for him. And in case that wasn't enough, kill your own friends if he orders it. He nods once. That's it. He doesn't smile. He doesn't thank you. He just nods. And suddenly you feel lighter. Or maybe just relieved you didn't throw up in your lap during the bow. After the ceremony, you are no longer just a student of the blade. You are property, not in the casual, metaphorical way. In the real, legal sense, you belong to the daimyo. Your sword is his. Your time is his. Your death? Definitely his. It's a strange freedom. The freedom to no longer make decisions. You return to the barracks with a new mark on your record, official retainer. The other warriors nod at you differently now. Still not friendly. But less like you're an intruder and more like you're an unpaid intern who might become useful if you stop screwing up. You are now eligible for duties. Which sounds noble until you realize what those duties include. Guard duty, mostly. Long nights standing perfectly still outside the estate, in full armor, in the rain, while trying not to sneeze. Sneezing is unprofessional. Yawning is disrespectful, shivering, weakness. If the daimyo's dog barks at you, that's probably your fault too. Sometimes you're sent to collect taxes. This sounds exciting until you meet angry farmers who have more rice debt than teeth. They yell, they throw things. You're expected to remain calm and remind them gently that refusal means punishment. You try to sound noble, but honestly, you feel like a thug in fancy pajamas. Other times, you serve in processions. Ceremonial walks through town meant to show the daimyo's power. You don't speak. You don't blink. You don't smile at the pretty girls peeking from behind curtains. You just walk, in formation, armor shining, face blank, like a wind-up doll made of duty and dehydration. Your fellow samurai don't talk much. They've long since shaved down their personalities into quiet, efficient loyalty. Some barely speak except to quote war poetry or insult your posture. Friendship here isn't earned with jokes or favors. It's earned through silence, survival, and the ability to keep up when things get bloody. And things do get bloody. Not war, not yet, but justice. One day, you're ordered to accompany a punishment squad. A village man insulted a retainer. Drunk, probably. Said something about how samurai are just spoiled swords with fancy words. Big mistake. You ride out with 5 others. No one talks. No one says what you're about to do, but you know. The man is dragged out of his home. His family watches. He cries. He begs. You're told to stand guard while the others mete out justice. You watch, not because you want to, but because you have to. His screams stay with you. Later over rice, one of the samurai shrugs. He insulted the blade. He says flatly, insult the blade, pay the price. You nod, because that's what's expected. But something in your stomach twists. Not at the violence. You trained for that, but at the silence. The normalcy. Like this was just another chore. You start to understand what it really means to be samurai. It's not just fighting. It's belonging. To a system. To a lord. To a way of life that asks you to erase parts of yourself, and then erase a few more. Until nothing is left but obedience and steel. You spend your nights polishing your blade, wondering how much of your soul it's already absorbed. You think about that man. The drunk villager. His face. His screams. You remind yourself this is honor. This is duty. But late at night, lying on your stiff futon, staring at the ceiling, and pretending you're not questioning everything, you wonder what the daimyo would say if you asked him why honor has to feel so hollow. You won't ask, of course. You're a samurai now, and samurai don't question. They kneel, they bow, they serve. So, you've survived the rice, the robes, the endless bowing, and the existential crisis brought on by your first sword cut. Good for you. You're still breathing. Unfortunately, the shogun has decided that breathing is a bit too easy. So now comes horseback training. Here's what they don't tell you when you're handed the reins to your new best friend. The horse doesn't like you. Not even a little. He's been trained for war, not friendship. He doesn't care about your poetry, your tragic backstory, or your fragile pelvis. The moment you swing your leg over the saddle, you're on a 1,000-pound missile powered by muscle, anger, and oats, and it knows you're faking it. Now in the West, you might picture a samurai galloping across the field in glorious, cinematic slow-mo, hair flying in the wind like a shampoo commercial. Reality. Your hair is tied in a knot that's tight enough to lift your eyebrows. Your armor creaks in all the wrong places. And your horse has just spotted a bee, meaning you're about to learn the hard way that terror can be aerodynamic. Riding a horse sounds fun, until you realize the Japanese saddle is made of lacquered wood. Wood. No padding. Just polished punishment for your rear end. After an hour of bouncing up and down on what feels like an inverted dinner table, you'll forget your name and remember every bad decision that led to this moment. But you must learn to fight from this creature. The samurai wasn't just a foot soldier. He was a cavalryman, a storm on horseback, which means you have to draw your bow aim and shoot, all while maintaining balance, dignity, and not peeing yourself. That's archery on horseback. They call it yobusame. You'll call it, why did I agree to this? Yobusame is not a suggestion. It's a spiritual discipline. Hitting a wooden target at full gallop while chanting under your breath and pretending you're not about to dislocate your shoulder is considered an expression of harmony between man and beast. Or in your case, chaotic flailing between sweaty panic and inevitable failure. You get 3 shots. That's it. 3 arrows, 3 wooden targets spaced along the track. You gallop. You shoot, you miss. All while a stoic priest watches from the sidelines, silently judging your every move with the calm detachment of someone who knows you'll be back next week with a new bruise and a worse attitude. And don't even think about falling off. Falling off is not a private shame, it's a public performance. The other samurai won't laugh. No, that would be merciful. They'll stare at you like you've dishonored the horse. Because you have. That horse is a better samurai than you are. It's seen more battle, probably written better haiku. Let's say, by some miracle, you survive the training. You can gallop and shoot and only cry a little afterward. Great. Time to learn spear combat from horseback. A spear, or yari, is about twice your height and twice your current confidence level. Unlike the sword, it's not elegant. It's not poetic. It's a stick with a sharp end, and your job is to point it at enemies who are also on horses, also carrying spears, and also tired of your face. If you thought steering a horse was hard, try steering one while swinging a metal pole at another fast, moving target. There's no pause button, no dramatic music, just adrenaline, armor clanking, and the sound of your teacher sighing in disappointment every time you jab at thin air like a confused scarecrow. Now here's the real twist. You're expected to look composed while doing all of this. Samurai don't scream. They don't pout. They don't yell. Please, I have asthma. They ride with faces like carved stone. So when your horse bolts sideways and you accidentally fling your spear into a tree, you better do it with the cold grace of a seasoned warrior and not like someone who just lost their last noodle. Of course, all this horseback glory assumes you even got a horse to begin with. Many samurai, especially the lower-ranked ones, had to walk. That's right. Some poor warriors hoofed it alongside their 4 leg betters, dragging their gear behind them like the world's most dramatic hiking trip. You're lucky. You got a horse. Even if it hates you, let's not forget maintenance. Your armor, polished. Your sword, honed. Your horse, brushed. Fed, trained. You're not just a fighter. You're a full-time animal caretaker. If your mount goes lame or loses spirit, so do you. And if it dies, well, you might as well dig a hole next to it and lie down. Because without your horse, you're not a knight, you're a walking target. And still, despite the bruises, the blisters, and the horse's increasingly judgmental glances, you ride. Because riding isn't just a skill, it's a symbol. A mounted samurai isn't just higher in rank. He's higher in society, closer to the heavens, further from the dirt. But don't let it go to your head, because the next drill starts at dawn, and your horse already looks like it plans to throw you into the river. Your thighs ache. Your spine is now shaped like a question mark. Your fingers are raw from gripping reins and bowstrings, and the vague idea of hope. But you're still here, and that, somehow, is the point. Welcome to samurai cavalry training. You may now dismount, if you can still feel your legs. Let's talk about the smell. Not the cherry blossoms or incense, not the fresh tatami mats or the faint perfume of green tea that people write poems about. No, let's talk about you. Specifically, the odor wafting off your armor after 4 hours of kendo drills in August, under the merciless sun, with nothing to drink but a ladle of rice water and your own sweat. You smelled like boiled discipline wrapped in shame. That lacquered armor you thought looked so majestic in the museum. In practice, it was a furnace. The breastplate trapped heat, the helmet gave you tunnel vision, and the face guard turned your every breath into a recycled stew of rice, anxiety, and last night's fermented pickles. You became a walking hotpot of suffering. And bathing. Oh, it was a privilege, not a right. You did it when your duties allowed, which wasn't often. Your best shot at staying fresh was a damp cloth, a prayer, and an ability to pretend you didn't smell yourself. The other samurai, they weren't judging you. They smelled like regret too. Of course, this wasn't just about odor. It was about control. A samurai was expected to appear calm, clean, and composed, no matter what sort of internal combustion was happening under their kimono. It was part of the code. Dignity in all things. So while you were halfway to fainting, hallucinating a cold river and a lifetime supply of fans, Your sensei was still yelling about your left foot being 1 centimeter too far out of place. Naturally, he was right. Posture mattered. A slouch could bring dishonor, not just to you, but to your ancestors. Yes, your ancestors. If you stood crooked during tea ceremony, someone 3 generations back was apparently shedding a tear in the afterlife. Imagine that pressure. It wasn't enough to survive battle. You had to look graceful while doing it. The sword wasn't just a weapon, it was a performance piece. And you were expected to be the lead dancer in a show where one mistake cost you your spleen. And don't get any ideas about flair. There was no your spin on the katana. You weren't auditioning for a role in a stage play. This wasn't Samurai Idol. The form was the form. You followed it exactly, or you got corrected, publicly, loudly, often with a stick. Improvisation was for the dead. Speaking of which, let's talk etiquette. Because even if you managed not to pass out in your armor, or shame your ancestors with an off-center stance, or turn into a puddle of human broth by noon, there was still the never-ending labyrinth of social expectations. Samurai didn't just kill people, they did it politely. There was a correct way to bow. Not too low, not too fast, and certainly not while speaking. You bowed to elders, to superiors, to your sword, to the scroll hanging on the wall, to your rice bowl before eating. Bowing was practically a second language, and every tiny variation meant something. Get it wrong and you might accidentally insult someone into a duel. Chopsticks, held wrong, dishonor. Slurp noodles too loudly, rude. Slurp too quietly, also rude. Walk ahead of your superior, unthinkable. Step on the threshold of a doorway. You might as well have spit on the emperor's sandals. And it didn't stop when you took your armor off. That was the kicker. The discipline never slept. Even in leisure time, you were expected to act like someone who was born into a haiku. Poetry, calligraphy, incense, matching games. These weren't hobbies, they were tests. If your brush strokes were messy or your poems too obvious, you didn't just embarrass yourself. You embarrassed your clan, and you didn't want to be the guy who embarrassed the clan. You might think, hey, I'll just keep my mouth shut. I'll listen, observe, stay quiet. Good plan. But here's the thing: being too quiet, suspicious, being too loud, disrespectful, speaking at the wrong time, career ending. Every sentence you uttered had to balance perfectly between humble, intelligent, and vaguely poetic. If you talked like a regular person, people would assume you were a threat to societal order. But don't worry, you weren't alone. You had your fellow samurai for support, or more accurately, for silent judgment. These were men who trained their whole lives to smile through a spear wound and drink tea like monks. They could recite Confucian philosophy while casually mentioning the most efficient ways to decapitate someone. Their faces rarely moved. Their emotions were folded into tight squares and tucked behind their ribs. If you cried when your toe got stepped on during training, they wouldn't laugh. They would stare, slowly, until you wished the earth would open and swallow you whole. Oh, and your sensei, he wasn't there to encourage you. He was there to sculpt you through psychological demolition. His compliments were so rare, entire poems were written when they happened. One student once got a nod during training. They had it embroidered into their funeral kimono. So, let's say you survived all that. You didn't pass out. You didn't fart in armor. You bowed the correct number of degrees and didn't spill your rice. Good for you. Now go cut off your hair. Because that top knot you see in samurai films, it wasn't a fashion choice. It was a symbol. A declaration. Once your hair was shaped into that proud little knot, you were marked. You were property of the warrior class. If you quit, if you ran, if you failed disgracefully, your top knot was cut, publicly, in front of your peers. It was the social equivalent of being stripped naked and painted with shame. Still want to be a samurai? Good. Hope you're ready to dream informal calligraphy and wake up smelling like boiled soy and regret. Let's say you've made it this far. The sword hasn't fallen, the rice hasn't run out, and the shi-gun hasn't pointed in your direction and declared, "This one smells weak." Remove him. Congratulations. You're still alive, but not particularly comfortable. Because now it's time to wake up before the sun, every single day, for something cheerfully known as practice. The Japanese word is kiko, which loosely translates to, "Today we break your spirit with repetition." You don't sleep in. You don't hit snooze. Snooze is for people who aren't preparing to get their heads sliced off by a rival clan or their own daimyo on a bad mood day. You wake to the sound of a bamboo flute, which might sound peaceful, until you realize it's your cue to spend the next 4 hours swinging a wooden sword at a straw dummy that hasn't done anything to you. Over and over and over again. The philosophy here is simply kill the straw man now so you don't become one later. Let's talk weather. Japan is not mild. Summer is a sweaty insult to the concept of dignity, and winter is a haiku about frostbite. The dojo isn't heated. There's no hot coffee, no fuzzy socks, and definitely no complaining. If your fingers go numb gripping the bokken, good. That's the ancestors testing your resolve. If your toes feel like they're falling off, even better. Samurai resolve is measured in how well you ignore your own limbs threatening to retire. Your training partner is probably older than you and shaped like a tree. You, on the other hand, are shaped like anxiety and soft bread, and yet you must spar with honor. Which means no whining, no backing down, and absolutely no crying, unless it's silent and into your sleeve, while you pretend it's sweat. The goal isn't to win. The goal is to not lose so badly that the dojo master begins writing your eulogy in his head halfway through the match. Speaking of the dojo master, he's watching. Always. He's the one with the beard that looks like it could cut glass, and eyes that have seen too many students break like twigs. He doesn't yell. He doesn't need to. He tilts his head, just slightly, and somehow you feel like your ancestors have collectively frowned at you from the spirit realm. You try harder. You sweat more. You still lose. After training comes chores. Yes, chores. Because being a samurai isn't all swordplay and brooding under cherry trees. You clean the dojo. You rake the sand. You carry buckets of water like a very disciplined mule. That's not my job here. Everyone sweeps. Even if your sword is sharper than your broom. Humility is a virtue. So is blisters. Lunch, rice and pickles if you're lucky. Maybe miso soup that tastes like regrets and boiled seaweed. You eat in silence because reflection is important. Plus, chewing is hard when your jaw still hurts from getting smacked by the hilt of a spear during morning drills. You nod respectfully to your fellow trainees, who all look like they've aged 5 years in 5 hours. But the real fun starts after lunch. Aiijutsu, the art of drawing and cutting with your sword in one fluid motion. It's beautiful, poetic, and completely designed to punish anyone with slow reflexes or loose sleeves. One mistake, and congratulations, you've just shaved off part of your own leg wrap. The sword is unforgiving, and so is your instructor, who watches you like a hawk with a grudge. You practice kata until your arms go numb, your back cramps, and your soul starts whispering, "This isn't sustainable." But you keep going. Why? Because quitting means shame. And shame in samurai culture is not just an emotion, it's a death sentence. Literally. Make a fool of yourself often enough, and someone's handing you a short blade and telling you to do the honorable thing. Spoiler. The honorable thing is not therapy and self-reflection. As the sun begins to set, you're allowed to bathe, finally. Communal baths, of course. No privacy, no modesty. Just you and a bunch of other warriors soaking away the pain and pretending not to notice who's got the most bruises. If you're lucky, there's hot water. If you're not, it's another character building moment. One you'll relive every time your spine audibly cracks from kneeling too long. Evening arrives, and with it comes shods, calligraphied or poetry, because the samurai wasn't just expected to kill, he was expected to do it with class. So now, exhausted and slightly concussed, you must sit still and write something beautiful in brush strokes, so delicate they could collapse under the weight of your fatigue. Try not to smear the ink with your tears. That's frowned upon. Dinner is more rice. Maybe some fish if the local cook didn't burn it in resentment. There's no dessert, no second helpings, and certainly no complaints. You're expected to eat with gratitude, even if your jaw barely opens from swelling. Conversation is minimal, usually about philosophy, death, or sword angles. You nod a lot, even when you don't understand, because questioning your sensei is like asking a thunderstorm if it could be quieter, please. Night comes fast. You sleep on a mat so thin it feels like a prank. Your body screams, your muscles twitch, and the straw pillow under your head smells like someone else's past life. There's no room for tossing or turning. If you move too much, someone kicks you. Gently, of course, with brotherly love and a bruised foot. As your eyes flutter shut, one final thought drifts across your weary mind. I have to do this all again tomorrow. And you will, because that's the life of a samurai. Endless discipline, relentless training, and a constant state of readiness for a death that might come from battle, your master's whim, or accidentally kneeling on a splinter during meditation. Still think you'd survive? Not even through Tuesday. The weight of your armor has become a second skin, hot, suffocating, but oddly comforting in its familiarity. It creaks as you move, iron shifting against leather, the scent of sweat and rust clinging to your nostrils. Your helmet rests in your lap, its curved rim marked with nicks from past encounters. You're seated on a barrel just inside the wooden palisade. You're back to a hastily constructed len, to where some of your comrades sleep, twitching in their dreams. Your ears pick up the sound of a soldier vomiting in the brush nearby. Not surprising. Most of the newer recruits have never been this far from home, let alone stared across a battlefield at hundreds of men, just as desperate not to die. The camp is filled with the quiet, restless sounds of an army that knows tomorrow will be worse than today. Your centurion paces past you. He doesn't say anything. He hasn't since the skirmish yesterday, where half your contubernium was cut down during a retreat through muddy terrain. He's different now, quiet, grim. You watch him disappear into the shadows beyond the firelight, and for a moment you wonder if he'll return. The rain begins again, not a downpour this time, but a steady, persistent mist. It seeps into your cloak, chilling your shoulders. The campfire crackles weakly. Someone throws another log on it, but the flame resists, sputtering as if reluctant to keep going. You understand how it feels. Across the fire, an older soldier, Tullius his name is, with a face like dried bark, starts telling a story. He always tells stories before battle. Usually they're absurd, full of exaggerations about monstrous beasts and beautiful women waiting in distant provinces. Tonight, though, he speaks of something quieter. A fishing village he grew up in. The way the light caught the waves at sunset. His mother's bread. You close your eyes and imagine it. You don't know when you fell asleep. Only that you wake with a start at the sound of horns. Not the brash, echoing horns of your own army, but the low, snarling blare of the enemies. It crawls across the landscape like a sickness. The men around you rouse quickly, grabbing their weapons, shouting orders, kicking at the coals of the fire to ignite them again. Form up. Your centurion bellows. You're already standing, sword in hand, shield strapped tight. The world has gone cold and grey and wet. The mist has thickened, turning the enemy's approach into a rumour rather than a sight. You hear them, boots squelching in the mud, metal brushing against metal, whispers in a language you don't know. The palisade offers little comfort. It was built in haste, and everyone knows it won't hold long if the enemy presses hard. Your unit lines up along the western wall, where the scouts claimed the attack would hit. You look to your left, Lucius is there. He meets your eyes and gives a small nod, jaw tight. You return it. Then it begins. An arrow whistles past your ear. A second later, screams rise from the left flank. Shadows charge the palisade. They are on you before the sun has risen. Your first engagement is chaos. A figure rushes at you with a curved blade. You deflect it with your shield, feeling the shock rattle your entire arm. You counter with your gladius, stabbing low and fast. The enemy crumples, and you barely register it as another takes his place. You've trained for this, hundreds of drills, but nothing prepares you for the smell of it, blood, mud, the iron tang of fear in the back of your throat, or the noise. Shouts, screams, the clang of weapons, the wet sound of flesh being pierced. You press forward, shield raised, hacking downward into whatever shape looms ahead. At some point, the palisade gives way. It doesn't fall so much as dissolve under pressure, the logs splitting and tipping as enemies pour through. You fall back with your unit, forming a tight block near the supply wagons. Tullius is bleeding from a gash above his eye, but still yelling encouragement like a lunatic. Lucius is beside you, his left arm hanging oddly. Dislocated, maybe, or broken. Your centurion calls for a wedge. You move as you've trained, shoulder to shoulder, shields angled to a point. Together, you push forward. The wedge is brutal. You hear bones crack under your boots. You don't look down, just keep pushing, keep stabbing. By the time the sun burns through the mist, the fighting has slowed. You find yourself on your knees, not remembering when you dropped. Your gladius is gone. Your shield is cracked down the center. You're covered in blood, some of it yours, most not. The field is a ruin of bodies and broken weapons. Crows have already begun circling. You see Lucius lying nearby, face turned to the sky. He's not moving. The centurion approaches. He looks like a ghost, pale, bloodied, eyes distant. But he's alive. He kneels beside you, presses a hand to your shoulder. "Well done," he mutters. You nod, but it doesn't feel like victory. Only survival. Later, when the camp has been re-established and the wounded are moaning softly under makeshift tents, you sit by the fire again. This one burns stronger, brighter. Someone found dry wood, a miracle. You cradle a cup of watered wine in both hands, sipping slowly, staring into the flames. Tullius is there again, a bandage wrapped around his head. He chuckles. "You'll get used to it," he says, gesturing at the battlefield beyond. "Or you won't." You don't answer. You're remembering the boy you saw in the enemy line. No older than you, maybe younger. His blade had been shaking in his hands. You struck him down before he even raised it. He hadn't screamed. Now, the silence around you feels heavier than any scream would have. The dawn seeps through the paper sliding doors of your cramped quarters. The room smells of old wood and dried incense. A faint reminder that life is more than hardship, though that thought is fleeting. Outside, the sharp ring of the kabuto, the helmet breaker, signaling the start of another day in the life of a samurai, slices through the morning calm. You rise, knees stiff, muscles aching like you wrestled a bear in your sleep. You've barely survived the endless drills, the biting cold of early mornings, and the searing sun of noontime practice. But today is different. Today you will face your katana for real. Not the polished sword hanging above the hearth, gleaming with promise, but the one that hums with danger in your hands. A weight not just of metal, but of centuries of blood and honor. Your sensei, a man with a face like cracked leather and eyes sharper than his blade, waits outside. He doesn't say, "Good morning." He doesn't smile. He never smiles. The air thickens with expectation, the invisible tension of lessons not taught with words, but with strikes and stares. You bow low, the formal ray that's more about survival than respect at this point. Then you step forward. The Aijutsu begins. The art of drawing the sword and striking in one seamless motion isn't just about speed. It's about control, precision, and calm under pressure. You're supposed to be fluid, effortless. But your hands shake. Your breath is uneven. You grip the katana's hilt. The polished wood feels cold, unforgiving. Your first draw is slow, awkward, too hesitant. The blade slips from its sheath with a shing that echoes too loudly in the silent courtyard. Your sensei's eyes narrow. His lips twitch, perhaps a flicker of anger or disappointment, it's hard to tell. "Again," he commands. You reset, bowing, heart pounding like a war drum. You try again, this time faster, smoother, but the blade catches on your kimono and you stumble. The world feels like it's tipping. The sensei steps forward, grabs your wrists in a grip that's both painful and corrective. His hands guide yours, forcing the perfect arc. The flawless draw, it's not kindness. It's necessity. "You must become one with the sword," he says, voice low and gravelly. "It is not a tool. It is your life." Your sweat drips down your forehead, mixing with the dirt on your face. You don't know how many attempts pass. The sun climbs higher. Your arms ache. Your mind strains to keep up with the unyielding pace. Finally, a moment of clarity. The blade slides out in a smooth arc, and your body flows with it. No hesitation, no trembling. You slice through a bamboo target set up to test your strike. The sound of wood cracking sharpens your senses. Your sensei nods once, almost imperceptibly. Good. But there's no praise, no smile. Just the steady grind of relentless expectation. You bow deeply, swallowing a surge of relief and exhaustion. But this is only the beginning. The samurai's life isn't about victories or praise. It's about mastering pain, rejection, and the constant threat that your blade might betray you, either by slipping, breaking, or failing when it matters most. Your hair is next. The famous chomage top knot, the symbol of your status, your identity. But it's not a gift. It's a chain. To earn the right to wear it, you must undergo a ritual haircut. Your head shaved at the crown, the rest slicked back and tied. A mark that you've entered the warrior class, yes, but also a public statement you belong to the code now. Fail or falter, and your top knot is cut off. A scarlet mark of disgrace, a sentence worse than death. After the lesson, you return to the barracks, the scent of iron and sweat heavy in the air. The men around you are equally battered, faces streaked with grime, eyes dark with exhaustion and determination. You lie on your thin mat, muscles twitching involuntarily. Your thoughts are scattered, fragmented. The sword is heavy not just in your hands, but in your mind. Outside, the cherry blossoms fall softly, beautiful and fleeting, reminding you that life is short, and the path of the samurai is a blade's edge between honor and oblivion. You close your eyes, knowing tomorrow will demand more. More precision, more endurance, more sacrifice. Because in this world, the sword bites as much as it saves. The dawn hasn't fully broken yet, but the village is already stirring. You awake to the harsh clang of the temple bell, a sound that cuts sharper than any blade. No soft whispers of the wind, no gentle birdsong, just the cold call of duty, dragging you from whatever scraps of rest your aching body managed to snatch. You rise, joints stiff, muscles screaming protest after yesterday's endless drills. The wound on your side, a reminder of yesterday's sparring match, burns faintly beneath your kimono. It's nothing serious, but enough to remind you that your body is a fragile thing, a collection of bones and sinew that can break at the worst possible moment. There is no time for self-pity. Your morning begins with misogi, the ritual purification. You kneel beside a shallow stone basin, cold water rushing over your hands, face, and arms. The cold bites into your skin like 1,000 tiny needles, shocking you awake. This isn't just physical cleansing, it's a spiritual reset, a call to rid yourself of weakness, doubt, and distraction. You cannot carry yesterday's failures into today's fight. Your sensei watches, eyes as piercing as a hawk's. He says nothing, but his gaze drills into your very soul. You hold your breath, waiting for the inevitable critique, but it doesn't come. For now, breakfast is modest rice, pickled vegetables, and a small cup of bitter tea. No room for indulgence here. You eat quickly, mindful of the growing knot of tension in your stomach. Each bite tastes like discipline and sacrifice. Then, the training resumes. Today is Kinjutsu, the art of the sword. The dojo is filled with the steady rhythm of wooden blades striking targets and the sharp breath of focused warriors. You take your place, katana gripped tightly in your hands, heart hammering. Your sensei demonstrates a sequence, fluid, precise, like the flow of water over stones. He moves without hesitation, every step and strike a testament to years of relentless practice. You try to mirror his form, but your movements are stiff, awkward. The weight of the sword feels different in your hands today, heavier somehow, as if it senses your uncertainty. A mistake. Your blade catches awkwardly on the air, and the sensei's eyes flash with disappointment. Again, he commands. You bow, swallowing the lump of frustration in your throat, and start over. Hours pass like this. Attempt, failure, correction, repetition. Each strike strips away a layer of your arrogance and doubt. By midday, your arms tremble. Sweat drips into your eyes, and your legs threaten to give out. But still, you press on. Because the path of the samurai isn't paved with ease or comfort. It's carved from pain, discipline, and the unyielding expectation of perfection. The afternoon brings Kaide, the way of the bow. Standing in the courtyard, bow in hand, you learn to control your breath, steady your aim, and release the arrow with a grace that belies the violence of the weapon. But it's not just about hitting the target, it's about controlling yourself, mastering your mind. Your arrows often fall short or veer wide, much to the amusement of your peers and the exasperation of your instructors. Still, you practice until your fingers blister and your eyes water. By evening, your body is spent, but your mind races. You think of your family, of the village you left behind, and wonder if they believe you when you say this is your destiny. As the sun sets, you sit beneath the blooming cherry trees, their petals drifting down like snow. You realize the samurai's life is a constant battle, not just against enemies, but against your own fears and limitations. You close your eyes and vow to become stronger, because in this world, weakness is death, and only the relentless survive. The cold morning air seeps through the thin walls of your modest quarters. You wake before dawn, muscles stiff and sore. your body screaming reminders of the previous day's brutal lessons. A dull throb pulses in your left forearm, a fresh bruise earned during sparring. The ache is constant, like a shadow you cannot shake. It reminds you, quite literally, that the way of the samurai is no gentle path. It is a path paved in pain, discipline, and the ever-looming spectre of death. You sit on your straw mat, wrapping cloth around the bruised limb, careful to avoid reopening the tender flesh. Your fingers tremble slightly, whether from pain or exhaustion, you cannot tell. The sharp edge of your reality settles in. This is no longer about youthful dreams of honor or glory. It is survival in a world that demands perfection, obedience, and total sacrifice. You rise, stepping lightly to the small basin where cold water awaits. You splash your face and wrists, the icy liquid burning at your skin. A rude awakening that cleanses not just your body, but your spirit, or tries to. Your breath comes out in misty clouds as you begin your morning ritual of misogi, purifying yourself for the trials ahead. In the quiet courtyard, the faint rustling of the maple trees contrasts starkly with the hardness settling in your chest. The cherry blossoms are long gone, their petals drifted away weeks ago, a reminder of fleeting beauty and even more fleeting life. The samurai's existence is entwined with that transience. One wrong move, one slip of the blade, and everything is over. Breakfast is simple: a bowl of plain rice, some pickled vegetables, and a bitter tea that burns your tongue but clears your mind. The food is sustenance, not comfort. You eat quickly, mindful of the hunger that gnaws at both body and soul. The day's lessons begin with JT-jutsu, the unarmed combat that every samurai must master. You find yourself on the cold wooden floor of the dojo, grappling with a seasoned opponent whose moves are fluid, efficient, and utterly unforgiving. Every throw, lock, and chokehold is a test not only of your strength, but your resilience. The training is brutal. You're thrown to the ground repeatedly, pinned beneath a weight you can't escape. Your limbs scream in protest as the sensei's sharp voice cuts through the air, correcting your every mistake. Strength is meaningless without control, he says. The true warrior masters his body and mind. Control is life. Chaos is death. You choke back a grimace as his words sink in. Your pride is battered alongside your muscles. Each failure chips away at your confidence, yet somehow, you keep rising. The dojo becomes a crucible, burning away your illusions. Hours drag by. Sweat pours down your face, stinging your eyes. Your breath comes in ragged gasps. Pain radiates through your bruises and joints. Yet, the training never ceases. At one point, your opponent executes a perfect throw, and you land hard on the wooden floor. The breath whooshes from your lungs, and your vision swims. For a moment, the world tilts, threatening to pull you under, but you grit your teeth, find your footing, and stand again. Giving up is not an option. Later, alone in the courtyard, the weight of the samurai code, bushidō, presses down on you like a mountain. Honor, loyalty, courage, self-sacrifice. Words that once sounded noble now feel like shackles. The same code that promises glory demands absolute obedience, even to death. You wonder how many samurai have ended their days not on the battlefield, but by their own hand, crushed beneath the unbearable weight of failure or dishonor. Your thoughts drift to stories whispered among the eldest warriors who chose death over shame, who saw no other escape from the impossible standards they were forced to uphold. You imagine yourself in their place, the shadow of despair creeping slowly over your soul. The sun sinks low, casting long shadows across the dojo's wooden floors. You rise, aching but determined, knowing tomorrow will demand more. More precision, more discipline, more sacrifice. As the cold night settles, you sit beneath the bare branches of an ancient cherry tree, the stars above indifferent to your struggles. The silence wraps around you like a shroud, and you understand the path you walk is unforgiving. It is a relentless test of body, mind, and spirit. The katana hanging at your side is not just a weapon, it is a living symbol of your fate. It will protect you, but it will also demand loyalty that borders on obsession. One mistake with it could mean death. One misstep with it could stain your honor forever. The samurai's life is a tightrope walk over an abyss, where each step is measured in blood and sweat. It's not a life for the faint-hearted or the weak-willed. It is a life where only those who embrace the shadow of death can hope to survive. You close your eyes, the cold night air biting at your skin, and vow to endure. to master the sword, the body, and the mind, to carry the weight of honor even when it threatens to crush you. Because in this world, weakness is death, pride is pain, and survival means accepting that every day could be your last. The first light of dawn barely touches the horizon as you rise from your thin mat. Your body aches from yesterday's relentless training, the bruises, the muscle strain, and the simmering pain from old wounds that never quite heal. Still, there is no rest, no time for weakness. Outside, the courtyard is already alive with movement. Other samurai and apprentices are preparing for the day's grueling regimen. The scent of cold earth and wood smoke mingles in the air. A soft breeze carries the distant clang of steel and the low murmur of practice chants. Today, you will learn the true meaning of discipline, the unforgiving ritual of kashakunen, the art of the honorable death and its necessary companion, the seppuku. The elders have gathered, faces stern beneath their lacquered helmets, eyes sharp as needles. The ceremony is not for the faint of heart. It is a reminder that honor is both a shield and a blade, and that death itself can be an act of loyalty. You stand apart, watching as one of the older warriors prepares himself. His hands tremble slightly, but his gaze is steady. The crowd is silent, the weight of centuries of tradition pressing down like a stone. He grips the tanto, the short dagger, and places it against his abdomen. The ritual begins. The first cut is deep and precise, a testament to years of training. Pain blossoms in crimson waves, but the warrior's face remains calm, even serene. The keishakunen, standing nearby, raises his blade and, at the right moment, strikes swiftly, ending the suffering. Watching, you realize how thin the line is between honor and despair. How close the edge you walk every day. When the ceremony ends, the elders turn to you. You must understand, the sensei intones, that a samurai's loyalty extends beyond life itself. To serve your lord, to uphold your honor, you must be prepared for all ends. You nod, the cold truth settling deep in your bones. This is no idle lesson. It is a warning, a promise, a fate you must accept. The rest of the day is spent in the relentless study of swordsmanship. The kenjutsu forms grow more complex, more demanding. You practice strikes and parries until your hands bleed and your vision blurs. The sword becomes both an extension of your will and a reminder of your mortality. Each motion carries the weight of responsibility, your life, your honor, the legacy of your ancestors. During a break, you sit beneath a gnarled pine tree, wiping the sweat from your brow. A fellow apprentice approaches, his face etched with exhaustion and doubt. Do you ever wonder why we endure this? He asks quietly. Why we accept this life of endless pain and danger? You consider your answer carefully. Because it is all we have. Our families, our names, our pride, they depend on us being strong. But strength is not just muscle and skill. It is the will to keep going, even when every part of you begs to stop. He nods slowly, a shadow of a smile crossing his lips. I fear the day I fail. So do I, you admit. As the sun sets, casting long shadows across the training grounds, the sensei calls the apprentices together for meditation. Sitting in the stillness, you confront your fears and doubts, the possibility of failure, the inevitability of death, but also the fierce determination that has carried you this far. The way of the samurai is a dance of death and duty, pain and honor, fear and courage. It demands everything and gives nothing easily. You close your eyes, ready to face another day, because in this life, to survive is to accept the impossible. The morning mist clings to the fields like a ghostly shroud as you and your comrades prepare for what everyone whispers will be the fiercest battle of the season. The air is thick with tension, but no one speaks much. Words seem pointless when the shadow of death looms so close. Your armor feels heavier than ever, the lacquered plates pressing against your chest like a cage. The katana at your side is cold and unforgiving. It is both your salvation and your sentence. You tighten your sword, the shoulder guards, and check the bindings of your heidate over your thighs. Every piece must be secure. One slip, one crack, and your life could be over before the battle even begins. The war drums sound in the distance, a deep, resonant heartbeat that shakes the ground beneath your feet. The warlord's banner flutters above, its fierce emblem, a snarling tiger, etched in blood red and gold. You line up with your unit, shoulder to shoulder, shields raised. Your breath steams in the cold morning air as you glance around, Faces of your brothers, in arms, are pale and tight with anxiety. Some mask it better than others. You can see the fear lurking beneath their calm. A whisper runs through the ranks today: there will be no mercy. The enemy is ruthless, known for their brutal tactics and savage warriors who fight like demons unleashed. The commander raises his sword, and with a shout, you surge forward, the battlefield opening like a maw beneath your feet. The clash is immediate and brutal. Steel rings against steel, shouts, screams, and the sickening thud of bodies hitting the ground fill the air. The smell of blood mingles with the dirt and sweat. Your training kicks in. You parry thrust, and strike with precision, each movement a desperate prayer for survival. The katana sings through the air, biting deep into flesh and bone. But the enemy is relentless. They press forward with savage fury, their own blades dripping with the blood of your fallen comrades. You see Taro, your closest friend, take a savage blow to the side. He falls, clutching his wound, eyes wide with pain and disbelief. You want to reach him, but the battle surges on, and you are swept forward, a wave of death and chaos. Your legs grow heavy. Your arms ache. You dodge a blade, then another, sweat stinging your eyes. A warrior blocks your strike and counters with a powerful blow that knocks your sword aside. Your hand grazes the earth as you stumble. Panic flares. This close to death, the mind flickers with visions of home, of the quiet village you left behind, of the family you might never see again. But fear is a luxury you cannot afford. You grip your dagger and launch yourself forward, catching your opponent off guard. The blade finds its mark, and he falls screaming. The battle rages for what feels like hours, though it might be only minutes. The sun climbs high, turning the blood-soaked field into a hellish tableau. Finally, the enemy breaks. Their line falters and the war drums fall silent. The survivors stand, gasping, bleeding, and broken. Around you, the bodies of friends and foes lie tangled in the dirt. You lower your sword, hands shaking. The victory tastes bitter. The cost is staggering. The commander surveys the field, eyes cold and calculating. "We live to fight another day," he says grimly. "But remember this, the true enemy is not the one who lies dead at your feet. It is the weakness within you." You nod, understanding. This war is not just fought with steel, but with the soul. As night falls, the camp is quiet except for the groans of the wounded and the crackling of fires. You sit by your own small flame, cleaning your katana. The blade gleams, but the weight of what you've seen and done presses down. Your thoughts drift to the way of the samurai, not the glorious tales told by poets, but the raw, brutal reality. The constant battle with pain, fear, and the spectre of death. You close your eyes, knowing tomorrow will bring more challenges, more tests of your strength and spirit. Because in this life, survival demands everything, and nothing less will do. The dawn is muted beneath heavy clouds, grey and cold like the fate that waits at the edge of the horizon. You wake with the weight of the coming day pressing deep into your chest. Today is not just another battle, it is the reckoning. Your body is battered and bruised from weeks of relentless training and skirmishes. Each ache is a reminder that time is not your ally. The scar along your side, a souvenir from the last fight, still aches beneath the armor. You dress slowly, each movement deliberate, mindful of every muscle and joint. The ceremonial chomage sits atop your head, a symbol of your status and your bondage. The top knot is a reminder that you are no longer an individual, but a cog in a machine of war and honor. Cut it, and you become a shame to your family and your clan. You grasp your katana, feeling its familiar weight, the cold, hard edge of your existence. It is more than steel, it is your legacy, your burden, and your curse. The warlord's banner snaps in the chill wind as you march with your unit toward the battlefield. The soldiers around you move with a grim determination. Faces set like stone, eyes dark with the knowledge that many will not return. The battlefield is a desolate scar on the land, churned earth and broken trees bearing witness to countless past bloodbaths. Silence hangs heavy, a pregnant pause before the storm. The enemy appears on the ridge like shadows come to life, silent, deadly, and unyielding. Their numbers are greater, their reputation savage. Your commander raises his sword high. The call to battle cuts through the stillness, a sharp crack that shatters the calm. You charge forward, heart pounding, every fiber screaming to survive. The clash is immediate and brutal, steel against steel, shouts of fury and pain echoing across the field. The battle is chaos incarnate. You fight not for glory, but because the alternative is death. Every strike is a gamble, every block a fragile shield against oblivion. You witness friends fall, their cries lost in the maelstrom. You dodge a fatal blow, sweat stinging your eyes. Your muscles scream as you parry, counter, and strike. The enemy is fierce, relentless. They push you back, inch by bloody inch. Your blade is slick with blood, both theirs and yours. A sharp pain explodes in your leg. You stumble, falling hard against the cold earth. The world tilts, edges blurring. The taste of iron floods your mouth. Panic claws at your throat, but you force it down. You grip your sword tighter, determination flooding the pain. Nearby, a comrade shouts, rallying the line. You push yourself up, ignoring the searing agony in your leg. The battle turns into a desperate fight for survival. You move like a shadow, striking where you can, retreating when forced. The sun climbs, casting harsh light on the battlefield strewn with bodies and broken weapons. Finally, the enemy falters. Their lines break, retreating in disarray. Victory tastes bitter. The cost is etched in every fallen comrade, every drop of blood soaked into the ground. You kneel beside a fallen friend, the reality of loss crashing down. The dreams of honor and glory seem hollow in the face of so much death. The commander surveys the survivors, his face grim but resolute. "We have survived today," he says, voice low and heavy with meaning. "But the war is far from over. Our true enemy is the darkness within ourselves." That night, as campfires flicker and wounded groan, you sit alone beneath the stars. The weight of what you have endured presses down like a stone. You realize the path of the samurai is not just about fighting others. It is about battling your own fears, doubts, and the crushing expectations of honor. Survival demands sacrifice, not just of flesh and blood, but of identity and dreams. You close your eyes, knowing tomorrow will bring more battles, more pain, and more tests of your will. Because to survive as a samurai, you must embrace the sword's bite, the relentless demand for perfection, loyalty, and the readiness to face death without hesitation. This life is not for the faint-hearted or the weak-willed. Only those who accept the true cost can hope to endure. And you, scarred, weary, but unbroken, are one of them.